And what many people don't know about like my journey to becoming the major MVP of that tournament is that I felt like I didn't want to be there. I just didn't know what to do when MSL called me and tried to convince me to get to North, which was like almost led to Astralis splitting up and going to a different organization basically.
I've got the absolute pleasure of being joined by Kjaerbye today in his home city of Copenhagen, no less. We were just talking about how this is the goated city in the summer, right?
Yeah, it is.
You can like swim everywhere. People just be jumping off in the canals, cycling everywhere. It's great.
Spring and summer in Copenhagen is amazing. And then when we get to the winter, every time I'm always discussing with myself if I should move to a warmer country. But I'm like always staying around until summer comes, and then it's like rinse repeat every year, right? But it's a nice city.
Let's start with something a little bit more casual.
Yeah.
Word association. So I'm going to say a word, and then you just tell me first thing that pops into your head. It's kind of Counter-Strike themed, but you can take it anywhere you want.
Yeah.
Train.
Like I get like a picture in my head of like me telling my younger self to keep training hard. Like when you make it, or like when you're at the top. Like I wish I would have told myself that I would keep training harder, because like once you get there, you obviously have to continue training hard. So yeah, that's like a image I get in my head.
Major.
I'm thinking a whole other ballpark. You can just see it here at the Copenhagen Major. Like it's a different game that is being played. Like people just wanted 10% more than the other tournaments, like at least 10%. The road to get to this major has been like insanely hard for some of the teams. I like the fact that every team has to qualify now, and major is just the place where legends are made, legendary moments are made, unforgettable experiences. But even though it's still Counter-Strike that we play many tournaments over the whole year, majors are just different. I would say the tension, the media, the hype, everything combined is what makes the majors wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's like the pinnacle of everything everybody works for throughout the year, right? That's what everybody's putting the effort into.
Everyone's dreams as a pro player is to win a major, definitely.
What was like going through your head during that run at the ELEAGE Major? Because I mean, even in that grand final versus VP, that was insanely tight on all three maps. Like, can you relive the mental that you were experiencing then?
I wish sometimes I could go back and relive it, but to me the memory is some kind of a blur. I think it was such a big relief to lift that trophy because it was the first time as Astralis that we were actually a favorite to win a title. And of course that first time was a major, which added extra pressure. And what many people don't know about like my journey to becoming like the major MVP of that tournament is that I was actually in a really bad place coming into the tournament. I felt like I didn't want to be there. And I remember calling our sports psychologist at the time, and I was like, I think I want to go home. Like I don't feel like playing this tournament. I'm not looking forward to it. I'm like, I'm not feeling that well. And then when I was finally there and we were the favorites going into that tournament, I just felt like I was like cheated in a way by my feelings, because I didn't want to be there really. This shows how mental Counter-Strike can be as well, because me going into the tournament really scared of playing, and over the duration of a few weeks actually shifting my mentality to be happy about being there, be grateful. Like I think I didn't feel any pressure in the grand final because of the whole like emotional roller coaster I had gone through before the tournament. That's maybe the most unnatural like feeling I had in my life. Was people think I'm just saying this every time I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
But I had a feeling like I never had before playing Counter-Strike, and I played professionally for 10 years. But on that day, I felt like I could not lose. Like I felt like I could not get nervous. I could not give up. And I'm a really emotional person in general who can get affected positively and negatively in many ways during a day or a game or stuff like that. So that was just so nice to have that, like being so calm before a major that I actually wanted to go home from, really.
Do you remember the moment you were given that MVP trophy? Like, did you think after the game, like, it's mine?
I remember after the grand final, I was my tournament had started off bad individually, but in the players I was playing really good, especially in the grand final. I knew Device hadn't played a good game, and he was sort of like the obvious MVP before the game if we had won that final. So I just remember going to the bathroom just like five minutes after we had won the game. Like my phone was just like being spammed by messages and calls and stuff. And I saw that HLTV tagged me on Twitter saying that Kjaerbye is your ELEAGE Major Atlanta 2017 Major MVP, and then was like started crying in the bathroom because it was so surreal of a journey those weeks I had been through emotionally, and just the way we won that grand final, like everything, it felt like that magic kind of existed in this world, that like this was fate and it happened, really. Yeah.
I want to ask about your decision to leave Astralis. In your sort of departing tweet, you said hardest decision at that point in your life that you'd ever made back in, 2018. Why did you decide to do that in the context of that situation? Why did you think leaving Astralis was a good move for your career?
So to add some context first, I think I was 19 at the time. I had sort of reached the top in Astralis in the beginning of 2017, and for the rest of that year it was just slowly but surely like going downhill. We couldn't agree on a contract extension with Astralis. That was sort of like really troubling for a kid like me, that what was once a family became a conflict of players versus organization because we disagreed on like what salary, like what terms we should have in our extended contract, which was like almost led to Astralis splitting up and going to a different organization basically. And at the time it was just, I had my own trouble with all the motivation and the pressure I couldn't handle after having reached the top. And I remember I didn't talk with anyone about it. I would have wished I just talked to my coach or other people, also than Sonic, about what was going on inside of me. Close very much in on my feelings and just tried to pretend like everything was fine, really. So I think it just boiled up over that year in 2017, where I got more and more frustrated. We went out in last place at the major, and I just didn't know what to do when MSL called me and tried to convince me to get to North. I think that feeling of someone believing in you that much and wanting to sign you that bad, but mostly it was also a small glimpse of hope that I would get my motivation back, was doing something really, like I thought if I do like a crazy move, it must trigger me to be motivated, because now I'm adding so much pressure to my back that now maybe I can get motivated again by proving people wrong again. So I thought that once again I could sort of create this false narrative for myself that I need to prove these people that has nothing to do with my life wrong, so I can be a good Counter-Strike player, and that's gonna make me really happy or something like that, you know, like just like a young kid also being confused of like, what do I wanna focus on in life? Like what is gonna make me happy? Because I had tried to go all in on Counter-Strike and feel like I sacrificed everything, winning trophies and feeling empty afterwards, because I felt like, is this all there is to it? Like I feel like I haven't seen my friends for 6 months, like, you know?
Yeah.
So like all those kind of identity things and stuff, I think it was just good timing from North as well, like poaching me at that time, because I was in a really confusing spot where I didn't know what I was gonna do. I think I was about to break down after all these feelings boiling in on me. And I remember like Astralis started to find out I was supposed to go on a skiing trip with my friends. Had to cancel that because I started talking to North. And I remember I completely had no gut feeling at all left at the time because I was so stressed. Like I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh, wow.
I just know that there was 2 teams and I felt like I might as well have thrown a dice to take the decision for me. And of course, no one should be put themselves in a position where they have to make such a big life decision to change to the rivals in that age. But I remember I was just like, okay, I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna say a salary number to North. And a part of me hoped they said no. So I wanted someone else to take a decision for solely my life on that part, right?
But they said yes.
Yeah, so the problem is like I'm coming here and saying, just throwing out a high number to North management. I want the salary, take it or leave it, basically kind of thing. And they're like, yeah, sure. Like, sure, okay, yeah, we want to sign you on these terms. And I think at the time I was probably also maybe the best player in the world for a few months there, like at least like at the level of the very best players in the world. And you know, that paycheck of course also added some pressure, but I remember like talking to my father like, fuck man, they said yes to this proposal. Now I have to say yes to North, but my gut feeling is saying that I should stay in Astralis and not leave in the way I have to leave, like without telling them. Like my new boss told me that I could not say goodbye to my teammates because they wanted the whole meteor stunt in North, where I remember it was like a press conference all of a sudden. And I wasn't allowed to tell my teammates I was leaving because I was basically a free agent.
Wow.
At the time. So I had signed with North without them knowing it because North wanted to like basically give a fuck finger to Astralis and say like, we own this meteor moment. We're not gonna let you do anything. And that sort of burned my bridge to Astralis for many years. Like ideally when you join a team, you need to be happy. And I was like just crying the next day thinking, I'm not gonna survive this. I was like, what the fuck have I done? Is this some kind of like nightmare? I'm getting so much hate on social media. I am like, okay, I have to finish this contract. I need to like do what I have signed and then I can quit my career. Like that was sort of the mentality I had at the time. And that was really crazy.
That's a lot to stomach at 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
That's definitely tricky. Obviously you said the context of you signed the contract, it was let's just live out the contract. The first few months of getting used to North, how different was it from the Astralis kind of machine that you were in? And how different was it than what you were promised this project would be?
When I look back on like the first days on the North office, like from the outside, offices in a football stadium with a sick view to the national arena on the 5th floor with the nice facilities. But I was like, Astralis was sort of like my ex-girlfriend, that I would like compare my ex-girlfriend to my new girlfriend in North. And that was sort of like, everything was just like, why are they not doing it like we did in Astralis? It was like, I think I was just like really biased by the way things were done in Astralis because as we talked about, it were a really special way things were handled. It just didn't have the family feeling of Astralis, and I was just straight out missing my family in Astralis that much that I could never really give it myself 100% because I didn't believe in myself. I would say like I never believed what I like sort of went out public to say that I want to become the best player in the world, because when I joined, I was really sad and cried. So like it was not like, okay, let me go destroy the whole world in Counter-Strike. It was more like, you know, like these thoughts of being stressed, like I can't handle this, I just need to finish the contract. Like when you sort of get into that mentality and had just signed with a team, I would say I'm also very sorry to some of my teammates in North, because obviously they thought also they would get me in the best mental shape, and like I wouldn't say I wasn't motivated, but I wasn't a good version of myself at that time. But you know, people at North were nice, but what comes to mind is just like it's not Astralis. It's not. I missed my family, and I had betrayed my family, and like all this kind of shit, you know.
Let's go back to the comparison between Astralis and North. No.
Oh.
Glaive versus MSL,
Yeah.
one of the goated in-game leaders versus Stockholm MVP, all ping in-game leading, the man who could do it all, MSL. What were similarities, differences, like being under two kind of big Danish names leading in the scene?
So the similarities between Glaive and MSL is, I would say, they have this what I call like natural born leader instinct, that we see many in-game leaders like try to become in-game leader after 5 years in the career, but they just never make it. And I think it's because a good in-game leader like MSL and Glaive, they are sort of born with this leadership attitude that you cannot train. And I think that's the biggest thing of the two. Like, you know, like if you wanted someone behind you to fight for your life, you know, you would probably call MSL or Glaive, because those guys were really putting in all the passion and the leadership into the team and hard work. And they were both leaders you respected, and leaders who were not afraid to call you out and yell at you if you did something wrong. In terms of the differences between MSL and Glaive, I would say that MSL was like really, really structured in the way the in-game things were happening. It was sometimes a bit frustrated to practice, because you feel like you were just practicing the same thing over and over, because he was so much into these small details. It's very much different to the way Counter-Strike is being played today, because everything was planned, and now it's more like free-flowing playstyle. And I think Glaive sort of was one of the guys who invented that on the fly thing. Like, he was really good at mid-round calling, where MSL was better at making and creating the tactics.
Yeah.
But Glaive was such a legend at setting up tactics from a player idea. And that means, let's say we had a round in an official game, Dupree is saying, I want to do this, Device is saying, I want to do that. Another in-game leader would maybe say, no, let's not do something we didn't train. But Glaive would say, and as a caller, you have limited time in freeze time to actually call the plan. In an amount of 10 seconds, you would be able to say, okay, Dupree, if you have the confidence to do that, Device is going to do that for you. And Markus, you're going to sit and hold this angle. And it's like, that was just a nice feeling as a player, that he trusted you and he could create a plan for the whole team around these individual. And I think very few players to this day would feel nice under MSL anymore, because the game is so much different now. Like, players have a lot of freedom, basically. Yeah.
Your stint at North comes to an end.
Yeah.
If you can summarize the kind of roller coaster that was those few years, like, do you look back upon the memories fondly now? Do you have regrets? Were there periods of frustrations? Like, how would you kind of summarize?
The funny thing is, like, after these 2 years, in the end of the contract, I actually start playing better, like feeling more happy for the game, because I have a coach who's actually saying to me, like, if you don't step out your game, you're gonna get kicked. And I was like, okay, so now I can just have fun playing Counter-Strike, because worst case I get kicked and I don't really want to be here. And then all of a sudden Counter-Strike starts being fun again, and I start playing really well. We qualify for a Berlin Major in 2019. I play like lights out individually. I'm just like having fun, feeling finally happy in Counter-Strike for the first time in more than a year. And North want to re-sign me, and I go to my boss and I say, okay, you can re-sign me, but it's going to be 2 more years on the same contract. And they're like, yeah, like it's so funny to see how fast in Counter-Strike that you can go from like 0 to hero and hero to 0 and that kind of thing. Like, all of a sudden I was just about to be kicked. I become really good because I managed to have fun playing, because worst case I get kicked, and that would be sort of not the worst thing in the life, because I wasn't thriving under this pressure. and it was not fun to play anymore. And then I start feeling like, okay, I might actually, like I survived these 2 years, I want to play again. I told myself I was gonna end my career after this contract, and now I'm here like extending my contract. And it was a good time. I had some good teammates, and we so slowly got like this family feeling over the years. I feel like some of the core players, and it was starting like I still have the Astralis skeletons in the closet back then. Like I was still sometimes like regretting me changing teams. I was still hated a lot by the community and these kind of things, but it was all right under like comparing to how bad I was feeling in the beginning of my North contract. And then COVID hits. And when COVID hit, I had the biggest midlife crisis in my life and career.
Midlife at 21.
like maybe the rest of us, but I was. It was such a bad timing because I finally had found my game and joy and all these kind of things. And COVID hits and everything is online, and I'm just starting to feel really stressed about it because we decide to take advantage of the COVID and practice even harder to try and get an advantage of the teams. All these years of stress I had in my body, like all this stomach ache I had from regret leaving Astralis, from feeling like people are telling me I'm a bad person. Like, am I a bad person for leaving a Counter-Strike team? Like, I actually believe those people sometimes. When you are forced to look back on your life the past couple of years, like some bad things happen. Like, you know, all this that was boiling in under me, I hadn't processed all those feelings. And I just like straight out like collapsed, in the sense like I was driving in my car and I was like having to pull over on the highway because I started having my heart started beating really fast. I started sweating a lot and I couldn't like my eyesight was flickering, all these kind of things. So I was forced to not play Counter-Strike for a few months. And that was the first time since I was 14 that I didn't work. Like I had always had a team, I had always played pro CS. And what's really weird about being on sick leave is like obviously you take sick leave for a reason because you are stressed. And I just figured out pretty quick like how sick Counter-Strike at the time made me. And I think that was something my body needed after all those years. But it was still my identity. It's still, I don't have education. I just thought, but like I'm young, I still have talent, like I should keep playing, right? And that was when my contract was abandoned with North or whatever you call it. And then FaZe were calling that they needed a player. And I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life at the time. Like, okay, I guess I have to go get my working gloves on and get back to work, right? The truth was that then I just joined FaZe Clan and it's still COVID. And at the time it was like I couldn't see my teammates. I ended up being benched after 6 months. It was my first international team and it was really chaotic and a shit show compared to the Danish teams I'd been on. Like people would just show up late for practice. No one were performing, and I feel like I wasn't really given a fair chance. But obviously they got a player who was better than me, and that's the business. And all these kind of things it's never gonna be fair because it's competition.
Yeah.
And you don't always get a warning. And I just found out in like myself that I was getting kicked because there was like, you know, you just have this feeling sometimes. And after that, I was like, okay, I was just done. So I called it a quit. I announced I quit playing. Then I was out for 1 year. And that was really nice for me. But since I don't have an education and my whole identity is Counter-Strike, I was like, oh, I haven't found something new. So I guess I'll just try and be a pro Counter-Strike player again. And then I joined Endpoint for 5 months. And what I discovered was like tier 3 Counter-Strike it's even harder than like tier 1. Like you cannot plan anything. You have these practice online qualifiers. you don't really get to the big stages, which is where, as a player, I got my adrenaline because I had been at that stage once. So I was always comparing me to the best and wanting to play here. And going from that to going to boot camp for 21 days to play a little tournaments, it's not gonna be nice unless you're in the tier 1. And having made it once, it's hard to sort of grind. Like, I remember I had just met my girlfriend. Like, I wasn't willing to invest 10 hours a day to come back to the level. And that was the sacrifices it required. So I choose to try with what I could in endpoint, but it just wasn't good enough. Like, I couldn't fully invest myself again because I was just scared of it like breaking me again, all the pressure and too much work, and like I was really worried about this work-life balance sort of thing. If you wanna be pro at something, you just need to be willing, like you need to understand that it's a limited period, as you said, but you will probably have to sacrifice a lot for many, many years. I just think you have to really sacrifice it for maybe 10 years if you want a good career. And I think I was just like too scared for that. Like I wasn't willing to do that because I wanted other things as well. But you know, the good thing is that you can enjoy the journey. Like Counter-Strike is amazing as a pro. It's tough, but it's also these guys' dream. I really admire these guys that can keep doing. Like I would love to like compare my mental side to them, or like how they manage to do it, because I know some of these guys, like they get really affected by the losses as well. I heard Olaf say as well, like the things the wins, they fade away. Like I always had that feeling. The wins feels like you're happy for 5 minutes. The close losses you lose in a final, you never forget them. It's like, it's pretty bizarre, right?
What have you found? Have you found something that gives you that fulfillment that you said you were looking for? The kind of, you're doing this just for you. You're not doing it to make other people happy. This is something that gives you purpose.
I definitely had hope that like I could just find something I could do for the next 10 years again. But I have discovered that having been pro CS player with no education, like I have to dip my toes in the water in different kind of things. Like I had different jobs. Like I did dishes, not for the money necessarily. Like I worked in a cafe doing dishes and coffee. I worked in a paddle tennis center where I was cleaning toilets. Like I did many different things, hoping to get closer to what my next dream is. I still have to stress sometimes because I have been so privileged to have something I could wake up to and call my dream for many years. And on top of that, also making a good living of it. But it's really difficult being on the other side. Like I'm still in esports. I'm trying to stream. I find some enjoyment in that, but it's definitely hard to like get a paycheck, I would say. I work in a youth club as well, I think.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do that?
I work in the old youth club I went to when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
And they have like a sick esports setup with 10 computers.
Nice.
So we do like Counter-Strike.
Of course, Danish Youth Club would have a LAN
and
setup.
the computer is even better than mine at home. It's insane. So yeah, we do like 5v5 where I'm like the coach and stuff, like 5v5 in Counter-Strike and Valorant and stuff. And I think having had a job where you were like thinking about the job a lot, even when you didn't play, like the pressure, expectations, like as a pro player you train with your team, but you also have to train individually. And how much should you train? Should I train more? Should I, like sometimes you are not playing but you're actually mentally on work, you know what I mean? And I think it's been really nice for me to have a job, and I don't take the job with me home really. I just meet up and I hope to help them with some kind of life advice or making them a better video game player. I think I found some kind of purpose, but I definitely still many times a year get like this identity crisis, like what the hell am I doing with life? I think that's how it is, being young and trying to become an adult, and that's just the time have changed, you know, like my parents is very like old school, like you need to find out what you're doing for the rest of your life. I think I'll probably be trying out many different things. I think it's really nice to be back in esports. Like I was afraid I could never come back here because that it's like I was just so fed up with the whole Counter-Strike career. But being able to do it freelance and also having another job, I think it's really nice to, you know, have these two different things I'm doing.
Yeah, it gives you perspective to everything
yeah.
as well, right?
So I would say I'm in the right direction, but I think like the rest of us, we're just taking decision, trying to mix being happy with also having a purpose and also making some money and like all these kind of things. But in general, yeah, I'm in a much better place than when I quit.
I appreciate you being really open about this as well, because like I think sometimes when you hear about people's stories of like, you know, struggling and progression and facing adversity, you always hear it when they're out the other side and when they found what they love and they've got their purpose, and it kind of can make you a bit, you know, well, you found that now. It's easy to reflect upon it, but when you're actually in that zone of what is giving me happiness, what's giving me fulfillment, it can be still feel kind of lonely, right? So I appreciate you being open about it.
Yeah, that's like the funny thing is like I did a few like keynote speeches like at schools where I talk about my career. But can I do these shows because I'm in the middle of this storm still? Like I still have this issue of like what? Like I'm still learning who I am outside of Counter-Strike. Found out like it wasn't meant to be that I should be a pro again. Like it was sort of toxic for me. I cannot even answer my own questions. Like I cannot tell my audience, this is how it was, and now I'm just making billions, or now I'm doing yoga every day. Like it's like I'm in the middle of it, but I also think that's something people hopefully can relate to. And it's like you don't have to be perfect to share your story or your work, but I'm definitely still working on that part. Like can I like having to figure out like what is the point of me, like what is the morale of my story really, but I don't know it. I don't know it.
Still being written, baby. Final question I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
To give advice to younger people who might be in a similar situation to you, might be wanting to get into esports and pursue it professionally. Obviously, you're around a lot of kids at the youth camp you work at. What advice would you impart on them?
So ideally, I would advise people to go to school and it's good to dream. Like everyone should have dreams and not having to fight them on their own. Like everyone is entitled to have someone who believes in them. I respect people who have the courage to go in a different direction than maybe their family members or their friends. But I also don't want people to be naive. Like this is definitely harder than ever to become a pro esports player. So just make sure you don't do something you regret. Like finish your school before you like start earning money, like all these kind of things. Like test the waters and don't just like gamble everything on being a pro player, because as nice as it is to pursue a dream, it's also nice to have a plan B sometimes. And I think I would advise people to be true to themselves. It's definitely hard in this business still. I hope we still get more transparency, that players can be more open in interviews about how they're feeling and the mental side of it, because I think there's some stigma about it. Enjoy the ride. If it doesn't work out, you are still have value as a person. You still made it, and my biggest advice is probably like you should never feel like you have to do something to make other people proud of you or to prove yourself wrong. Definitely rather find out something you want to do for your own sake. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for your insight as well and being so open and honest. And yeah, best of luck with
Thank you.
your future endeavors.